When you build for Shopify, how much of what you're touching is actually open, and how much is a black box you're only allowed to talk to through an API? Today we draw the real map. The core commerce platform, the theme layer written in Liquid, the apps that extend a store from the outside, and the command line tool that ties it all together for a developer. Every piece of code you see today is pulled verbatim from Shopify's own public repositories and the published Admin API schema, because that's genuinely all of Shopify that's public, and knowing exactly where that line sits is the first thing a serious Shopify developer needs to understand. Welcome to Shopify Development Deep Dive. This is part 1 of a 50-part series that opens Shopify's real, public source code in the real published API schema, and explains what it actually does instead of what a marketing page summarizes. Unlike some platforms, Shopify's core commerce engine is closed source. You will never see the code that processes a checkout or writes to the orders database. What is public, and what this series lives inside, is the developer surface, the DOM reference theme, the Shopify CLI, and the Admin and Storefront GraphQL APIs. Today we lay out how those pieces fit together. By the end of this part, 5 things should click. Why Shopify's core commerce platform is closed source, and specifically what public surface exists instead. How a theme renders storefront pages, server-side, using Liquid and JSON templates, without you ever touching Shopify's own application code. How an app extends a store entirely from the outside, authenticating with OAuth and reading or writing data through GraphQL, with zero access to the platform's internals. What the Shopify CLI actually does is the single entry point a developer uses for both themes and apps. And where the real, citable, public source lives for every one of those layers, because that's what every future episode in this series is going to open and read from directly. Strip away every detail, and a Shopify store is 5 pieces. The platform, the closed source, hosted commerce engine that handles carts, checkout, payments, and the database. You never see this code, full stop. Themes, Liquid templates and JSON section data that render storefront pages server-side, inside the platform's own request cycle. Apps, separate services, often not even written in Liquid at all, that extend a store from the outside and never touch the platform directly. APIs, the Admin GraphQL API and the Storefront GraphQL API, the only sanctioned doorways into platform data. And the CLI, the terminal tool that scaffolds, previews, and deploys both themes and apps. Themes render inside the platform's process. Apps and the APIs that reach them live entirely outside it. A few things help before we dig in. Node.js version 18 or newer, plus the Shopify CLI itself, installed with npm install-g at Shopify/CLI at latest. We'll look at real CLI source in a minute. A free Shopify partner account and a free development store, so you have somewhere to actually run these commands against. Basic HTML and CSS, and enough JavaScript to read a fetch call, since GraphQL requests are just JSON over HTTP. And you don't need any prior Shopify experience. This episode exists specifically to build that mental model from scratch, using real public source instead of a diagram someone drew from memory. Every single storefront page on a DOM-based store starts by rendering this file, layout/theme.liquid, straight from DOM's real source at tag v15.5.0. Notice request.locale.iso_code and canonical_URL and page_title. None of those are variables DOM defines. They're objects the platform itself injects into every Liquid render, before your theme code ever runs. Themes don't fetch this data, the platform hands it to Liquid as global context. That's the whole relationship in one file. Shopify's closed source platform prepares the request, and your open, editable Liquid template decides how to display it. This is the real top of DOM's featured collection section. Look closely. section.settings.quick_add and section.settings.padding_top aren't hard-coded anywhere in this file. They're merchant choices, made in the theme editor, that Liquid reads at render time. This is Online Store 2.0's core idea. A section is a template plus a settings contract, and the actual values live in JSON data the platform stores per page, not in the Liquid file itself. Change the padding in the theme editor, and this exact same file renders differently, with zero code deployed. And here's where those settings come from: a schema tag, embedded directly in the same .liquid file, right down in DOM's real featured collection section. This JSON block is what the theme editor reads to build its sidebar: a collection picker, a range slider from 2 to 25 products, each with an ID. The Liquid above references is section.settings. Whatever you named it. One file defines both the rendering logic and the merchant-facing controls for it. That pairing Liquid plus an embedded schema tag is the entire mechanism behind every customizable section in every Online Store 2.0 theme. This is the real command method behind Shopify Theme Dev, from the actual Shopify CLI source at tag 4.4.0. It doesn't render Liquid locally at all. It authenticates an admin session, then either finds the theme you named or creates a disposable development theme on your real store through Development Theme Manager. Then it explicitly checks whether you're about to develop against your live theme and asks you to confirm. Every preview you see while running this command is your local Liquid files, synced up and rendered by the actual hosted platform. The CLI is a thin, honest client, not a local Shopify simulator. Here's that command actually running. Shopify ThemeDev syncs your local theme directory to a real development theme on your store, then serves a local preview on port 9292, hot reloading CSS and section changes as you save files. That local URL is a proxy. The actual Liquid rendering, cart logic, and checkout still happen on Shopify's own closed source platform. The CLI never becomes a local Shopify server. It just gives you a fast feedback loop against the real one. This is the current stable Admin API, version 2026-07, straight from Shopify's published schema on Shopify.dev. An app never touches the platform's database directly. It sends a POST request to this exact endpoint, with the store's domain and the version baked right into the URL, authenticated with an x-shopify-access-token header obtained through OAuth. This query.products call, asking for the ID and title of the first 3 products, is a real, working example straight from Shopify's own documentation for this version. Whatever an app does to a Shopify store, read products, write an order, update inventory, it happens through requests shaped exactly like this one. And this is a real response shape from that same published schema. Notice the extensions.cost block. Every single Admin API response tells you exactly how many points that query cost, how many points your app has left out of a maximum bucket, usually 1000, and how fast that bucket refills, here 50 points per second. This is Shopify's cost-based rate limiting, and it's not something you configure. It's baked into every response, and a serious app has to read it on every call, not just react after getting throttled. The exact same CLI binary that ran ThemeDev also scaffolds and runs app Shopify app, and it creates a project wired for OAuth and the Admin API, and Shopify app dev installs it on your development store, opens a live GraphQL console for testing queries, and tunnels a public URL to your local machine so Shopify servers can reach your app during development. One tool, 2 completely different targets: a theme that renders inside the platform, and an app that runs entirely outside it, because from a developer's terminal, both really are just Shopify projects. A handful of things trip people up here. You will never find the source for checkout, payment processing, or order rights in any public repo. That boundary is real and deliberate, not a documentation gap. Section.settings values you see in a .liquid file are read from JSON template data the platform stores separately, so grepping only the theme's Liquid files will never show you a merchant's actual configured values. Shopify ThemeDev is not a local Shopify simulator. It's rendering against the real hosted platform through a synced development theme, which is exactly why it needs a real store and a real login. And the Admin API's cost-based rate limiting is reported on every single response inside extensions.cost. Production apps read that field and back off proactively. They don't wait to get a throttle error first. Let's pull the whole map together. The platform is closed source, and hosted carts, checkout, payments, and the database live there and nowhere else. Themes are Liquid and JSON, rendered server-side inside that same platform's request cycle, and we open real .dawn source to prove it. Apps are external services that never touch the platform directly. They authenticate with OAuth and do everything else through an API. The Admin and Storefront GraphQL APIs are versioned, published, and cost-limited, and we just queried the real current version, 2026-07. And the Shopify CLI is one tool that drives both themes and apps against that real platform, not a local stand-in for it. That's the skeleton. Every future episode in this series lives somewhere inside it. That's the real shape of a Shopify store, straight from Dawn, the Shopify CLI, and the published Admin API schema, every file and line cited. Part 2 goes one layer deeper into Liquid itself, opening the Shopify/Liquid interpreter source to see exactly how a tag like if or render actually gets parsed and executed. If you want the rest of this series as it publishes, subscribe now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in part 2.